Welcome all. I think we're well overdue for an update on the state of the Scirocco project. I've now got it up on stands. That's one of the front stands which I'm not actually using at the moment. It's just on conventional axle stands. Just the way the lift worked, I couldn't get these stands into the jacking point, but the rear's up on the other ones I made. These are a set of Triumph Herald rims that I'd actually abandoned and was just using as weights on a tarpaulin, but I pulled the tyres off, did a little bit of welding with some scrap. The angle line was old fence posts, and these you can actually remove the post. So if I need a different height, or if I want to repurpose the base for something else, I can. So, seeing as we're here, we'll start at the front. You can see I'm in the process of making brackets for a rotisserie, so I can support the shell and rotate it to do various fixing. Engine bay is pretty much stripped. The contactor box is out. Steering rack is out. Steering rack turned out to be scrap. It was in horrible condition. I might see if I can show you the rack bar later on. It was obviously in bad condition when I originally put the car on the road, but past the MOT, okay, I've now built up a new rack for it. You can see we have a hole in the bulkhead, and this is absolutely typical Mark 1 Golf and Mark 1 and Mark 2 Sciroccos, that Volkswagen just did not put any reinforcing on the bulkhead in the right hand drive. You look over to the left, you can see a load of reinforcing ribs up the bulkhead and to where the original servo mount would have been, which is a 3-point mounting. There's just nothing on this side of the car. I've added a third mounting point to the pedal box and to my servo mount that I'd made to turn the servo through 90 degrees to make room for the battery box. And you can see there's a little bit of channel I've made in there that's reinforcing the clutch cable arrangement. As far as rust up here is concerned, virtually none. It's all just little bits and pieces of surface rust you can see everywhere, other than the lip on the rain shield channel. And this is pretty much how it was when I originally built it. I just put a load of rust killer on it and put the trim back on. But seeing as we're doing everything else, I'm going to tackle that at this point. The bonnet was always fairly ragged. I'll have to back up a little. See, there's quite a lot of surface rust. Some of it is more serious. The mountings for the rubber stops have rusted out. The reinforcing plate for the bonnet catches, I'm going to need to strip all of this outer skin back and refabricate to see what I can do at cleaning up the inner reinforcing plate. Bonnets are really hard to find. They did tend to suffer from rust. This one is otherwise, the outside's pretty okay. If I zoom in here, you can see that, you know, this edge has rotted back. Again, this is something that got treated and given a blow over with some paint, but it obviously hasn't done a very good job protecting it, and we'll have to see what we can do. I think this is savable until the mythical perfect bonnet turns up. But if we move on down the side, front panel needs a little bit of straightening, tiny little bit of rust fixing. Front wings okay, apart from some surface rust. The door is good, but lots of little rust spots to deal with. Now, as far as structural rot is concerned, that's the biggest hole in the floor. There's another little one up there. There's one at the back edge of the sill and the floor pan, not too serious. And there is this hole in the sill. So all in all, really not too bad. I mean, there's all sorts of things like this that's quite deep into the metal in terms of surface rust, but isn't through. Rear wheel arches could be worse. Quite a lot of sections to make up and fit in, both inner and outer arch. This was a little bit of a surprise. The flange, one skin of the flange is completely gone. I'll probably end up replacing both. It's pretty bad around the catch area. A little bit more over this side that I've got to make good. There's a somewhat random hole in the back panel, but actually this rear valance is actually good. And the other wheel arch, this is the side where things get a bit crowded. We're actually not too bad at the front there. More work to do at the back. But, and I'm trying to remember how bad this was before. I'll try and show you all the ripples in this arch. And honestly, I'm trying to remember whether this arch was rippled when I owned it or not, or whether it's been damaged since, but there's that might be tricky to get sorted. I might be looking for a body cut to get an arch. You can't get repair panels for a lot of the Mark II. I can buy an entire rear wing genuine panel for £1,000. That's not happening. But one way or another we should be able to sort it. Some of the trickier stuff is things like the dashboard. The outer skin is a foam, and then there's this fibre material, which you can see here is delaminated. And unfortunately the car sat with water in the floor pans at some stage. Excuse me for going sideways, but you can see this is the ducting up to the screen demist, and you can see how badly out of shape and stretched and structurally unsound this has all become. And you usually see some distortion in dashboards on Sciroccos. I don't at this stage know whether I'm going to be able to get this back into shape and rescue it, and it's hard to find a good dashboard assembly. I'm a little suspicious of the electrics. If you look at the state of those relays, that again was the fact that it sat with water in the floor pans, all that rust is actually off the seat frames, and that'll just wipe out mostly. But I've had the steering column and the pedal box, such as it is, out, and you can see on the top there's the extra mounting I've made to try and stiffen everything up. The brakes on these are pretty terrible, and part of the problem is that when you press the brake pedal, the bulkhead moves, and you can actually feel the steering wheel moving because the pedal box is the lower column mount. We've also got a bit of rot to deal with in the screen frame. This is definitely bubbling up, and we have a further area here and another one on this corner, so those are only going to be fully exposed once the screen is out. A little spot here, and also on the tailgate, and I know there's a hole in here, but I think that's the only serious problem with the tailgate, so quite fixable. Well, this sorry looking item is the rack bar, and you can see just how rusty it was, and how I can vaguely recall having got an advisory on the MOT for play in one of the universal joints in the steering column. Well, it turned out that it wasn't the universal joints in the steering column. It was actually the fact that the input bearing to the rack had collapsed and this pinion was moving around, but that was the least of the rack's problems, having you know, it seemed to steer fine. It didn't feel excessively heavy, but clearly with the rack bar in this condition it wasn't moving smoothly past the steering damper as it should have been, and hopefully with a new rack it will be much improved.